on to brighter topics like Brighton.
Yeah.
Andy, I'm going to hand it to you because you are the master of torture.
Yeah, man. Well, I want to start off with the Aaron Ramsey Guard of Honor. I know that that check, and then we'll get to it with Welbeck. But I watched the video of him breaking down. I didn't get to see it live, and I was genuinely sad. I think he's the end of that British core we were so desperately wanting to achieve greatness at Arsenal. And
you're not holding out hope for Genko?
No.
He's the one that made it.
I know. It's so sad to see him go, and whatever the circumstances were with his contract, I think the mark he's left on our club is nothing but positive. His professionalism since August, when this was really kind of announced that he wouldn't be extending, has been nothing short of just class, Mike. You've mentioned it about how he turned you. I wish him all the best at Juventus, but he was probably the player we were desperately needing against Brighton. And we've desperately needed a lot this season, and I hope that we get a suitable replacement for him. But Mike, I don't know if you have a thought on that breakdown that he had, where he had to get coddled by Czech at the end of it.
I'll tell you what, I heard that as soon as the game ended in the pub, we were basically begging them to turn it off. So I actually missed a lot of the post-game stuff if they televised it over here, and decided not to watch it because I had mixed feelings about the whole Guard of Honor in general after the way that we limped through the end of the Premier League. But as far as Ramsey's concerned, I echo your sentiments completely. I mean, at this point, the contract issue is just, it's just crying over spilled milk. Whatever happened, whoever was responsible, doesn't matter anymore. And we have to hold on to what we've recently said, which is, that we're not going to let these, final years of contracts even approach anymore, that we're not going to let it happen again with players who who are an important part of our squad. I'm not talking about Lichtsteiner. He's still not an Arsenal legend in my mind for what it's worth, but he's definitely turned me as a consummate professional in how he handled the last 4 months at the club. I mean, it's clear he was at some point the most committed player of our 24 or of our 18, and he was the one with his foot out the door. And I just cannot conceive, that's a statement on a lot of things, but it's a positive statement on Rambo. Mm-hmm. And it is no small surprise or coincidence that since he went down against Napoli, we've taken 1 point out of 12 in the Premier League and missed out on the top 4. Someone else that's leaving, Danny Welbeck.
Oh yeah, but John, do you have anything you want to add to the Ramsey? I guess I was really referring to him weeping in Czech's arms. But what's your thought on the whole him departure? And
I mean, I think everything's been said on the whole contract thing. I'm often on with Jason, who's obviously Ramsey's biggest fan in the world. But I'm a big Ramsey fan. I've always liked him, and it was that made me emotional. It reminded me a little bit of some other players leaving the club, like when Bergkamp retired, and you could see the emotion in him, how much the club meant to him when Ian Wright left. And it kind of had the same, feeling to me. I still get the impression that he didn't want to leave, that he would have stayed had things been opened up again. But yeah, he basically he summed it up perfectly. He went from being a boy to a man at the club. And at one point yesterday,
Andy's done that on our podcast.
At one point yesterday, I did think to myself, I might have to drive all the way to Wales to go and check that Jason is all right. Because if Jason sees any of those videos of Ramsey crying,
welfare check. Take a look at his wrists.
I think in a few months from now, when the dust settles and he's probably in Italy and he pulls on that Juventus shirt, he's probably going to be happier that he made the move, considering how well they're going to be and how good they are challenging for titles, and especially Champions League. I mean, he's going to fit right in. I think he'll get a lot of playing time if he stays healthy. Is Welbeck done? I didn't see the whole ceremony, but he got one of those sexy boxes, so I'm assuming that he is being shipped in the summer.
Yeah, they're not bringing him back. And speaking of sexy boxes, how's your mom doing?
Oh God, I'll take it because I was making sex jokes about your mom this morning on text. So we're even.
I'm nothing if not predictable. I mean, I don't want to disappoint people. when it comes.
So he is done.
Yeah.
I wrote this last night and then I didn't look it up because I wanted to, obviously like have the conversation. But what are our thoughts here? Because for me, we're opening up a lot of cash. I think he's on 125 or 150 a week. He's constantly injured, but again, could we not have done what Tottenham are doing with some of these players and giving a decent weekly wage with a high performance bonus and saying to him, "Hey, you're healthy when you play. If you score, assist, or whatever, we're gonna give you a cash bonus."
I think we've missed Welbeck a lot more than people realise.
I do too.
I think he's not the most prolific goal scorer, but to have someone in your squad who can play that many different positions, who will work that hard backwards as well off the ball, and he always runs in behind. And it's the one thing since Ramsey's been out of the team, we haven't had anyone else who will run beyond Lacazette or Aubameyang, really. And Welbeck is someone who does that, and Ramsey's another player who does that. We don't have anyone else in the squad who does those kind of things. And even if they're not scoring the goals, it just opens up the space and makes it easier for Lacazette or Aubameyang to score. So I do think it is. I understand the club's decision because of his injury record, but I think you're going to be hard pushed to find a player who's got his level of experience and who will happily play second fiddle to other strikers and will, just whatever the manager says, yeah, fine, yes, boss, I'll do that, and whatever is asked of him, he gets on and does. There's a reason why Alex Ferguson liked him so much. He always played in big games. It wasn't because he scored goals, it was because he did exactly what the manager asked of him. And I think those kind of players are very invaluable in squads. So they're, from an injury standpoint and everything else, maybe the medical team know something that, whatever injury he's had now is going to make it more difficult for him to play consistently. So if that's the reasoning, then fine. But you do definitely need to replace that. And it's hard to get that player who can play so many different positions and so many roles in one player.
Yeah, you have to replace him. The thing that keeps me thinking that this makes sense, obviously the peak in-form, healthy Welbeck, as we finally saw at points in the last 2 seasons before injuries, is a great help, as you've said. But, a couple seasons ago when we pledged 160,000 combined pounds per week to Per Mertesacker and Santi Cazorla, who combined, I think, played another 4 games for us the following season.
Yeah.
All per. That hurts. That was part of, and that was the sentimentally acceptable part of, but part of our salary and wage restrictions that we dealt with are those kinds of contracts given out to players who can't contribute. So I don't know what Welbeck's recovery is. It was a broken leg, not an ACL. So, he may be back. It might have been back by the beginning of next season, or it might have been a couple of months in, like a Bellerin type of situation. But, if we spend money wisely, and we're not getting money for him, but we are conserving salary, we have to replace with a like player, not just from a skill perspective or a goal scoring perspective, but from a mentality perspective to do the tough things. We can't, to replace him with someone like Zaha, who is all flash and substance and attacking, and isn't going to do, in my opinion, I may be wrong because my tactical news issues, but it's just not going to be like for like. It's not going to be an improvement.
Yeah.
And it stunted a little bit as well, Eddie Nketiah, who I think Welbeck doesn't get injured, and Nketiah actually gets a loan move, and he goes out and gets some playing time. And that's a season essentially wasted for Nketiah. It's not his fault. It's just the club are in a position where they can't afford to send him out on loan now because they've only got 2 strikers.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point.
Yeah. Well, the rumor mill, as I just Googled, is that Welbeck might be on his way to Everton, which could be a good home for him. I bet, it's a suitable position.
It's a good replacement for Theo.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we can get Theo back. So yesterday's home draw with Brighton effectively ends our chances at finishing in the top 4. Technically, if Spurs lose, we win, and those 2 results make up an 8-goal difference. We'll finish in 4th, but that isn't going to happen, right, Mike?
No,
we're clearly going to win 7-0.
No. This is how it's going to happen. 90th minute, Everton gets a controversial penalty against an 8-man Tottenham, and scores to make it a 7-0 win. So they've done their job. Meanwhile, at Turf Moor, Arsenal is holding on to a 1-0 lead in the 94th minute, concedes a penalty from Mustafi slide tackling a guy who didn't even have the ball. And we finished 5th on goal difference. So that's I'm looking for online betting sites where I can bet just that exact scenario because, I mean, it's just the easiest money I've ever made. Can you get a penalty for slide tackling somebody who's like across the box from where the actual ball?
They're in their penalty box. He just goes and slide tackles their keeper.
And somehow they call a penalty the other way.
So Brighton are in 17th, probably partied in London extremely hard knowing that they were going to be staying up. And we can't even register a win. I mean, that's a pretty damning statement. Like, a team with nothing to play for.
Yeah.
We couldn't even show up against them.
Well, teams with nothing to play for love us. We're a team that, like, in the last 2 months has been completely afraid of our own shadow. Scared of success. And I would say that we're playing down to the level of our opponents, except we're playing down to the level, like, way beneath our opponents. And, this is the maddening thing that you could end up spending 2 hours moaning about. But, I mean, Brighton had nothing to play for, John.
No.
Yeah, I mean...
What do you do when you have nothing, like no meaning to... I mean, do you come out and dominate in those situations?
No, I mean, I think it frees them up a little bit and they don't have to play the defensive football they've played all season under Chris Hughton that, their fans have been complaining about. And they've got some decent players. I mean, Basuma yesterday I thought was quite good for them. Solly March isn't a bad player either. The 2 centre-backs as well, Duffy and Dunk, are both very good. But if you come into this game, we know we have to go out and hit it. And I thought we started right and we had the right attitude. But Brighton just went, we've got nothing to lose. It doesn't matter. It's a free roll for them, and they can go out and express themselves a little bit for the first time this season. It doesn't matter what the manager says because that we've stayed up, we've done our job. I just think the nerves got to the players yesterday, and I think that's the big thing that I've noticed this season is people have spoken for years about mentality of the squad and we need more leaders and this, that, and the other. And I've tended to agree sometimes. I think it's been a bit overstated. But when you look at, I know yesterday was a home game, but you look at our away form to our home form, it's so dramatically different that it's got to be in their heads. And I think in certain games they go out on the pitch and they think they've already won it, and then they just don't put the effort in. Because I thought the application at the start of the game was okay, but I thought Emery got the lineup like horribly wrong, like the formation. Because Brighton are going to sit in. So what do you need? You need width. You're not going to get width with the players we had on the pitch. The only way this team has any width in it is when we play with wing backs.
If they want width, they need to sign me. Wide AF.
I mean, Mike, we had 71% possession. We took 20 shots. 8 of them were on target. But despite all that, we could only force one quality save out of Ryan. And I know Aubameyang had that dreadful miss, but where do you think we're failing? Is it the build-up play? Are we just losing possession too much in midfield? Like, I just...
You're asking me about tactics?
No, well, no, I mean...
Yeah.
We could go to John if he wants to answer that. It's just there's clearly something missing. We can all see it. And I think when you look at or you hear about Emery, where there's rumors that he stays up until 2 a.m. in the morning with his team going over tactics. I mean, is he pouring too much thought into this, or are we severely lacking certain areas of the pitch? I mean,
the skill of our players is not good enough on the whole. There's no question about that. But we've seen teams excel well above their punching weight when their skills are not anywhere close to what ours are. And so, again, I'm not just saying this because I'm the opposite of a tactical genius, but I think it's more in the mentality. I like John was saying, we've got, for lack of a better word, a considerable level of bottlers on our team that don't have the mentality to just burst through pressure and burst through being afraid of losing. Just as Brighton had nothing to lose yesterday, we had everything to lose yesterday, and we played like we were scared of losing. Even when we went up 1-0, we after about 5 or 10 more minutes of being on the front foot, the game just shifted, and this is a mentality issue, and it isn't necessarily all 11 that have to have that same bad mentality, which is why I'm still holding on hope to that gradual shifts of some of these people out of the club and replaced with other people, if they're the right people, can start to shift that. I thought that mentality had shifted earlier in the season. I really did during the 23-game winning streak or unbeaten streak, or 22, whatever it was. I really started to feel good about that changing, but it clearly hasn't changed. And Emery can pour all the knowledge and skill and game plan into these players that he wants, but if they're not going to accept it and process it the right way, we're going to end up failing at the biggest opportunities.
So I had in 16 years from now, Mike, you can thank me for my
for Ollie.
For my passion of taking my not even 2-year-old son to football practice on Sunday mornings, and driving 40 minutes to get there.
Do you push him around in that little like in a crib?
I gotta send you a video. I gotta send you a video because there's a video where he's literally dribbling through all the people, and one kid's got a cone on his head. And
That was Danny when he was growing up.
That happened in Jake's U17 practice the other day too.
The coach came over to me and she goes, "I think he's a child prodigy." And I pointed to the kid with a cone on its head and I said, "No, I think he's the only one who's actually just like dribbled the ball before." But so in 18 years, you can thank me for this. So I had to listen to the first half on Arsenal player, and Ali Adier was doing the co-commentary, and he was talking about the question was asked, like, at this point in the season, when you're a safe team, what's going through the mind of a player when you walk onto the pitch? And he essentially said, you do not want to get hurt. You do like 50-50 tackles. You don't want to go in. Like, you want to be like, you're not thinking of the beach. You're not thinking of vacation. You're thinking of preseason. You want to come back healthy and strong. And so when you go into these matches, the 50-50 challenges aren't there. You're going to pull out. You're not going to be making those quick sprint runs because you don't want to pull a hammy. So he's like, your mentality in your mind is go out there and don't get hurt. Give effort, but don't give 100%, right? That all being said, and Brighton are not that good of a team. They didn't. I don't think they played like that. And for a team like Arsenal, who has everything to play for, we should have been giving 100%, if not more, and going in even harder. And it's shameful. It's absolutely shameful. Let's get to the two soft penalties quick. I don't think either were, but Xhaka doesn't need to make that contact. It's just absolutely atrocious. And now, granted, the player goes down very softly, but we know every player in that scenario in the box is going to go to ground. He knew what was going to happen. There's just no reason for it. It's just such piss poor mentality from Xhaka to make that just atrocious challenge. It was so bad.
And this from Xhaka's biggest fan, but I'm glad that you aren't. There's no way to put a lipstick on that pig yesterday. And I don't mean he's a pig. I mean that play was a pig. Lest I'd be misunderstood for the 97,000th time this week. I thought the penalty on Monreal was legit until I saw the 20th replay, and it looked to me like the defender not only won the ball but barely touched at all. Yeah. Monreal. So Monreal's not one to typically dive. Speaking of Welbeck, like his dive in the Milan game last year, which I was at and I absolutely loved.
The last time you played for Arsenal, right?
Yeah, that was the last time I played. It was a lucky penalty, and that the ref probably looked at that play at halftime and said, if there's anything even remotely close to a penalty going the other way in the second half, I'm calling it. Yeah. And Xhaka gave it to him. It was another boner from Xhaka, and not the kind that you like, Andy. No need to make contact. He was already beat. He should have been focused on trying to deny the cross instead of pulling him back. Total dive, shameless dive. But it is what it is. We still had, after that penalty, about 25 to 30 minutes to go on and score the second. We couldn't get it done. So, to blame Xhaka for the loss, he didn't help. But the team still should have risen above that.
At the end of the day, we shouldn't be 1-0 up against Brighton.
Not in a game like that.
No, when everything's to play for, we need to take our chances. John, we've managed only 4 points from the last 18. Mike and I have debated over the last few weeks how a team such as Arsenal, with all the firepower, massive wage bill, are just playing so poorly. Is it the players? Is it coaching? tell our listeners who maybe don't listen to ABW on a weekly basis, kind of what your thoughts are on just why we have just been so shit the last 2 months.
I mean, it's a combination of a few things. I think you look at team selections in certain games, like Crystal Palace. You can't play El Neni and Guendouzi as your central midfield pairing, especially after the performance they put in against Everton. I know we're at home, or we've got a much better home record than we have away, but it's not strong enough. And this is a Palace team that have got one of the better away records in the league outside of the top 6 teams. I think they might be 7th in the away record league, something like that. And they've got quick players. They're going to hit you on the break, so bad decisions there. I think the Brighton game was a case of again poor decisions from the manager. The moment he made the 3 substitutions and we went to wing backs, you saw how much more times we actually got players behind Brighton's defence and we actually got the ball into the box. We didn't finish the chances, but at least we were actually creating something and putting some pressure in. I don't understand Emery's decisions all the time, and it's not just him, because the players do have to take fault for this as well, because a lot of their performances have just not been good enough, and they frankly haven't been up for it in enough games. You can just see in the attitude, in not going for 50-50s, not going for headers, lazy about when they track back, that kind of thing. But he will go into one game and you will see him pick the team and it's absolutely perfect and he makes all the substitutions and it's spot on and you think, wow, okay, this coach knows what he's doing. He's really studied the opponents. You get to the Brighton game yesterday, they're going to sit 4 at the back and then 5 in front, and they're just going to let you have it out wide and just let you just say, right, just swing crosses in the air and Duncan Duffy will deal with it all day. We put a team out that doesn't even have the ability to do that, has to play through the middle, play through all those players, which makes it extremely difficult. The moment we do actually go to width, we're sensible and don't play it in the air, we play it on the ground and make it very difficult for defenders to do. But why do you have to be so reactionary in a game and wait until the 70th minute when it's 1-1 and the heads are down and the players feel half beaten as it is, the crowd's on your back? The stadium atmosphere was dreadful yesterday. I don't understand why it takes so long. So a lot of it is the manager. I think the unbeaten run was flattered us, to be perfectly honest, because there was a lot of games in there where it could have gone a very different way. I mean,
did it flatter to deceive?
Yeah, that would be the cliche. Absolutely, ring that bell. Everyone talks about Mesut Ozil this season, and they talk about the Leicester game and how amazing he was, and he was brilliant in the game. He was absolute fire. But before we scored a goal, there's a moment where Rob Holding, before he's injured, jumps up for a header and blatantly handballs it. It's the most blatant, obvious handball in the world, and the referee doesn't see it, and they don't get a penalty. If they get that penalty, that game's completely different, and maybe you don't see the Mesut Ozil performance that everyone gets. And there's so many occasions in games like that, in that unbeaten run, where things like that happened. They went in our favour, and we got away with it. So I think you have to question the manager's decisions. For the most part, I think he gets his substitutions right. I just question about when he does them, the timing of them. But there's definitely, Guendouzi annoys the hell out of me with his lack of tracking back, but he's 19 years old. You're asking a lot from a kid who's just come up from League Two. You can't say to him, I'm going to stick you in midfield and you're just going to boss it. It's ridiculous. You can't expect that from him. We've had no right back all season. Maitland-Niles has done amazing, don't get me wrong. I think he's been great out there. But he's not a wing back. He's not a right back at all. He's just playing that because we don't have one. The fact that we didn't even, Lichtsteiner signing was a complete joke. So the whole management, I think from way up top at the board level, some of the recruitment down to the manager and the players themselves, they're all at fault for this. But there is a general, there's like a lack of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like owning who's at fault for it. It's all, it's this guy's fault, it's that guy's fault, the way they blame things. Like the Mustafi-Leno mix-up where he lit Zaha through in the Palace game. He immediately jumps on Leno as if it's Leno's fault that he hasn't come out for the ball. You take ownership of it. Say, no, this is, okay, yeah, I've made a mistake.
It might have something to do with why the agenda's against him, because he's constantly raising his hands up in the air.
But I think that it's not just him. The thing is, you see that from him on the pitch, but I think it's just a general thing at the club. No one takes ownership of anything they get wrong. Yeah. And it's just that the blame is always passed on to someone else. It's a lot of retrospective now, or people saying, oh, well, this is because it's Wenger's squad left over, and that's why Emery can't do anything with it. Well, yeah, to a certain extent, it is an unbalanced squad, and there are some issues with it that clearly need to be resolved. But you're hired as a coach, Emery, to come in, and you know exactly what players you've got, so you've got to deal with that. That's your job. Your job is to get top 4 or to win the Europa League. Now, if he wins the Europa League, fair enough, fair play to him. He's done amazing, but he's failed in the league, to be perfectly honest, and he's failed spectacularly at the moment when it matters the most.
Given how everybody else has performed, similarly to Leicester season,
just like gone, completely thrown away so many games in this run that we've had as well. How many times are they going to give you opportunities to go, okay, you can jump above us now. Oh, no, don't worry, you have top 4. No, you have top 4. It became a joke like the last couple of weekends.
I mean, we could have had third place wrapped up 3 weeks ago. We could be going into these remaining matches with it's just
if we had drawn all these games instead of losing them, we would have been in the.
I mean, you look at the predictions from the start of the season from most of the journalists. Not everyone's going to agree, but a lot of people had Chelsea like 5th or 6th. Sarri's coming in, it's a totally different style of play. The squad's very different and unbalanced. Arsenal, I think, were actually most people's team were for 4th. Man United were lower down, but it was Man United and Chelsea most people had missing out. So I think he's underachieved in the league, definitely, because we've been given so many chances to jump into that top 4 slot.
Yeah.
I predicted Fulham to finish 7th, so that shows how much.
I mean, they spent what, 100 million?
They spent 112 million, and they got a huge problem now. We're talking see you in League One next season.
Yeah.
Just another quick shout out to the chat before we move on to the next stage. Nikki Wilson's joined us. Oh my God, this is the worst crossover since Batman versus Superman. Andy the GFP is in there with us now, so we're seeing double with him. James CO from New York City, not Boston, is in the chat. Recipient of a hug from me a few weeks ago. Pablo Amar is in here. Ant CL 1082, is that it's going to be 1,082 years until we're back in the Champions League? Is that what the name means? And a couple other people. So thanks again for joining us.